is the Business of Reselling podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Oman. Hello, and welcome to episode 47 of the Business of Reselling podcast. This is going to be my last episode of the year. It's been kind of a weird year, and I'll do a year in review episode early in January. I'm not quite ready to put that all together, but I am reflecting a little bit on 2024. It was a bit strange. It should have been highlighted by winning the Entrepreneur of the Year award. If you've listened to episode 46, that was a pretty anticlimactic experience. We made some good partners in the business world that will continue into next year, and we have some ideas for more. But yeah, the 2024 just didn't quite hit the way that I hoped it would. Anyway, I'll do an episode all about that in January and start to look forward into the next year, as I think we have some pretty big plans and maybe some more specific things that we want to accomplish, which will probably make next year quite a lot better. Anyway, a few topics that I want to touch on today. I will go over briefly our Black Friday, Cyber Monday, holiday selling season results, kind of weaving that into the Canada Post strike and some of the stuff that's going on with that. And I have some advice for you related to it. And I did promise that my next podcast episode would also be about our Shopify journey. So I'm going to get into that as well. So one thing I do want to mention, and this will I'll loop back to this a little bit later in the episode, but I am officially launching a private business coaching service. I have coached a couple of people over the past year who've reached out to me, but I haven't come forward and said that I actually do offer this as a service. So I'm going to be doing it. Private business coaching, that's one-on-one, that's you, me. We're just discussing your business, how to make it better, the problems that you're having, working on process, efficiency, whatever it is that you want to do to scale. I charge $100 an hour for those sessions, and you can buy just 1 hour. But if you buy 5 at once, there's a 20% discount. So I'm just floating that out there to let you know that it's available in case you've been thinking about maybe working with me. You do have that opportunity to do so, and I would love to talk to you more about how it can work. So just email me hello@Storagewarrior.ca or tag me in whatever social you want, and we can go from there. So I'm just going to mention that. But let's get right into the episode. I'm going to talk first about our Shopify experience. So if you listen to episode 46, you know that we had a whole bunch of problems associated with the Entrepreneur of the Year award experience. And it left me with the motivation to kind of start to shift some of our reliance on the selling platforms from eBay over to Shopify so we could take a little bit more control. And it is something that we'd been thinking about doing for a long time, but the EOY awards were kind of the catalyst for actually getting me going with it. And so I did spend a few weeks setting up a Shopify store, and this store will eventually be available to buyers worldwide. But for now, I'm setting it up just in Canadian dollars for Canadian buyers. I'm doing this because I know that we do have Canadians who are on our email list and have maybe bought from us locally before, who really wish that we had a selling platform where they could buy in their own currency without worrying about conversion fees. And so that was kind of part of why I did it. It was also very much simpler to just deal with one country and one currency first. So I have been enjoying the process. I will say I've been enjoying the process of figuring out how to set up a new store, getting the listings in there, figuring out the design of the site and stuff like that. It's kind of neat, and it's been a real departure from my usual day-to-day work. However, I've had some frustrations with it, and to be honest, they were no surprise to me. First of all, I'm not good at design, like visual design, and Shopify has these great templates that you can use, and I'm just horrifically bad at adapting them for my needs. Like I just get, and then I want to do something with a particular page, and I realize I can't put a menu over here unless I custom code it, and it just drives me insane. So the sort of technical side of it, as well as the design side of it and really being able to envision how I want the site to look have been challenging for me. I find it really easy to look at somebody else's website and say, this are wrong navigationally or design wise, this isn't working. I just can't look at my own stuff and see that. And I know I'm not alone in that regard. So I had a little bit of frustration with that. Setting up shipping policies has been a bigger challenge than I expected. While Shopify has a lot of great flexibility in how you can set up shipping policies, it also makes our particular store very complex because we are selling so many different kinds of things. They're different shapes, sizes, and weights. And unless I were to go back into my store and start measuring and weighing each one of those items, which I do not do on eBay because it's all flat rate shipping there, um, like it was going to be a real hassle to get correct shipping set up on our Shopify store. So I kind of like took a stab at it and like guessed at the weights of all of the, I don't know, 500 or 600 items that I've uploaded there so far, and kind of just hope for the best that the combined shipping would work the way that I wanted to. The flat shipping didn't make sense because I can't just like say, oh, it's $10 flat shipping and then have somebody purchase, a 10 kilogram box of comic books and then want them sent to Inuvik, and then I'm out all of this money. So that wasn't going to work either. Anyway, it's not perfect, but I did make something that was functional. Um, I had a hard time getting listings to copy over from eBay to Shopify. I was told this would be a seamless process. It was not. I tried several applications to try and get to do it. The one that I finally landed on that worked pretty well was InkFrog. I could not find a service to bring those listings over that would actually allow me to import by category only. And that was frustrating because it's what I wanted to do was set up a Shopify store with just comic books first, but I couldn't just go take the comic books out of my eBay store and move those over. I had to only import them by keyword. So I had to like type the word comic into InkFrog, which is where all my listings were being held. And then it would put those listings over to Shopify. But any of my listings that don't have the word comic in them, for whatever reason, didn't get pulled over. And then also I had non-comic book listings that for a variety of reasons did have the keyword comic in them. And then those got pulled over even though I didn't want them to. But I got most of them done. And then because all of our eBay listings are priced in US dollars on .com, I needed to convert them to Canadian dollars on Shopify, which meant adding like 35-40% to the price to show in Canadian dollars. And I didn't get that to work very well. And I ended up having to do a lot of manual adjustments. So it was quite a learning process. And once I had those things relatively sorted out, I was able to soft launch the store to our email list. However, it didn't result in any sales. I only sent it out once. And of course, our email list is mainly buyers. They're not people who necessarily who listen to this podcast. I don't think there's a lot of crossover. So they may not have understood why I was doing it. They weren't following the process and things like that. So whatever. I put it out there. It's live. I've actually put it down here in the show notes. I would love for you to check it out and give me your feedback. I'm very, very open to your feedback on the design or any aspect of it at all. The functionality, I'm really happy to hear it. By the time I had done all of this though and done the soft launch, I was kind of exhausted and needed a break from it as well. We were starting to get close to Black Friday and I had a lot of stuff to do in the store related to that. So I kind of just soft launched it and let it go. So the plan now is I'm going to continue to build up the store and we'll start trying a few listing projects where we put the listings in Shopify first and then push those from Shopify to eBay instead of the other way around. I've kind of given up on the idea of importing my entire eBay store into Shopify. I don't think that's going to be practical. Just knowing, excuse me, I had a cold and I'm still a little bit stuffed up from it. I think that's just going to be too cumbersome to do. So my kind of objective is to work out a system where we post things to Shopify first, then we push them over to eBay. Excuse me. And then we keep control of everything kind of within Shopify as like the central hub for all of our listings. That's what I'd like to see. But I'm not going to be adding listings very fast. I only have, pretty much only have comic books there. There's 500 or 600 ads. I think it's more important to work on optimizing the store. That's search engine optimization, maybe tweaking design and policies to make it more buyer friendly, as well as, of course, build traffic to it so that we start getting some sales there. 600 SKUs on the site is pretty good. It's a pretty good start. I think that's lots of product for people to choose from. And so I need to just make it more visible. And as I do that, we'll slowly start to add inventory to Shopify, just a few listings at a time. So that's kind of my general thoughts about how I'm going to work on it. I admit I haven't got a specific plan for exactly what I'm going to do and on what times, but that's something I'm going to work on between Christmas and New Year's when I have a little downtime, and we also have a helper coming in, so I won't have to be in the warehouse quite as much. So one thing I have to mention is that this Shopify project I'm not doing it because I'm mad at eBay. It's about reducing risk, and I'm going to come back to this theme later in the episode. I've never thought that relying 100% on one platform for your entire livelihood is a good thing, and it's very risky to have everything on eBay. Our eBay sales compared to other online platforms are like 30 to 1. So to me, that's a risk. It's a high risk. Something can happen to that platform, just the way it did for Poshmark Canada during the Canada Post strike, which I'll get into a little bit later. And so it is something that's been on the back of my mind for a long time, that I just want to reduce that risk and make sure that I have control over all of my inventory if and when I need to. And so that's kind of the primary motivation behind it. So it's going to take a long time. I think I did put a timeline of 12 to 18 months on that. So we're, less than 2 months in. As long as I keep plugging away, I think it will work out pretty well. So Black Friday, yeah. So I did launch the Shopify store, and then we were starting to move into Black Friday. I have a Black Friday strategy that I use almost the same way every single year, which is I go on eBay, I put basically my entire store on sale. There's almost nothing that gets excluded except gold, because no deals on gold ever. Plus gold prices are up. So it's especially true this year. Anyway, I put everything on sale. When you put things on sale in your eBay store, your watchers will increase. And so when your watchers increase, then I go and I say, I send an offer to watchers that's just 5% off, additional off my sale price. And I'll say something like, hey, it's Black Friday. Get this special deal today and get an additional 5% off our already reduced price. And I run that with different custom messages all the way through Black Friday and through Cyber Monday. And it's been super effective for the past 3 years. This year, it wasn't. And I think it's because of the Canada Post strike. I really do. I think, our Canadian sales have all but dried up over the last month, and they make up about 20% of our eBay sales. So that's significant. And that's about how much we were down over what I expected to achieve for that Black Friday weekend. So I think Canadian buyers may have thought we couldn't ship. However, we could, because we use Stallion, and Stallion has like several other couriers. So it didn't affect our operations. We were still able to ship, but I couldn't really push that messaging out to people as much as I would have liked to. So I think a lot of potential Canadian buyers just didn't think that we would be able to ship to them, and they didn't ask. A few people did ask, but I'm sure many more people didn't ask. And some US buyers may have heard about the strike and thought the same thing. I did get one message from a US buyer asking about that. So maybe two, actually. So there definitely were Americans who were also aware of what was going on, and maybe they thought we couldn't ship. So yeah, 20 to 25% lower than we normally would be, which really made the Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend just like every normal weekend for us. So it is what it is. I do think the strike was the number one factor why my strategy didn't work as well. I was incorporating little messages to those offers to watchers that said, like, don't worry, if you're in Canada, we can still ship to you. But yeah, that's only going to be marginally effective. We had planned to make up for it by having a week-long local sale and encouraging people to come and buy from us in person. And warehouse is really full right now. So there was a lot we could have offered, but then Johan hurt his back like the week before we were supposed to do it. And we didn't have enough manpower without him to get it set up properly. So we kind of abandoned that idea. Hopefully our Boxing Week sales will do well. I'm already ramping up a couple of them in categories where I feel like we have too much inventory, like clothing. And, hopefully these will do well. And Canada Post may be going back to work next week. They've announced, the government announced intervention on Friday, but there isn't the return to work plan that's been publicized as of yet. But we're hoping in the next few days that Canada Post workers will be back, and then those Boxing Week sales will be really good for us. So regarding the Canada Post strike, if you're an American listener, I know I don't have too many. I think most of you are Canadian, but if you're an American listener and you don't know what this is about, our national postal system has been on strike for a month. As I just mentioned, it didn't affect our ability to ship most of the time. We had to cancel a few sales to Canadian buyers because they were in very rural areas where Stallion's alternate carriers didn't go, or they were using a PO box. So like I couldn't use like a courier to ship to them. And then of course there were those 3 or 4 days where UPS and FedEx and I think Purolator had temporarily stopped taking some parcels due to a backlog. So I had a couple of sales during that time that just like there weren't any carrier options available and I wasn't able to ship. So lost a couple sales that way. Fortunately, nothing that was big dollar. Yeah, I think all of this buyer perception changed because of the strike, and they may have heard about UPS and FedEx as well. This definitely had an overall negative effect on our sales recently. We still had some really good days, but no real banner days. Now, I do sell on Poshmark a little bit. Our Posh store is listed down in the show notes. I didn't put any effort into Poshmark at all because I only sell Poshmark Canada and they only produce Canada Post labels. So I couldn't ship anything anyway. So I didn't do any discount offers. I didn't really list anything. I did nothing with the Poshmark store. So over the past month, there were only 13 Poshmark sales. 3 of them have been canceled already. I don't know if Posh canceled them or if the buyer canceled them. Whatever. That's fine. We actually do have a few Canada Post parcels that are probably stuck in transit, either Canada Post that we put through Stallion, and there's definitely one from Posh that hasn't got there yet. I haven't heard from any of these buyers, so hopefully they're just aware and being patient. But funny thing, I had the opposite problem. A buyer, one of these Poshmark buyers reached out a few days ago to me and was like, "Oh, I just wondered why you haven't shipped my parcel." And I was like, have you heard that? Okay. So there are still people living under rocks who definitely have no idea that this strike has happened at all. So it has affected our business. I'm not going to complain about that. We have ways to pivot. We have things that we can do. So it is what it is. It's something that's out of our control. Hopefully they're going back to work this week, but there's going to be a backlog. It's hard to say what the plan is. We just have to wait and just keep doing what we're doing. But there is a lesson here. And it's similar to what I mentioned earlier about not relying 100% on eBay. And so trying to move some of our store over to Shopify. And I also talked about this in very early podcast episodes. Maybe if you went like below episode 10, I think you would find these episodes where I discuss some of the risks of relying on eBay or any third-party platform for your entire livelihood. See, in the case of full-time Poshmark sellers, and I'm sure some of you are listening, so you know how much this hurts, this was absolutely devastating. Poshmark only has Canada Post labels, and for whatever reason, never thought forward to the possibility that the mail carrier would not be able to deliver and did not have a backup plan. So they didn't have an alternate carrier that they could get Poshmark sellers to use. They didn't even have an option for people who were selling things on Poshmark who lived in their city to come and pick up locally. It wasn't there. There was nothing. And oddly, they kept putting out these messages to sellers, encouraging them to list, encouraging them to do Posh live shows during this time. And I thought it was very strange. They say that the messages are automated and they can't turn them off. I mean, guys, like, have some foresight. I thought this was horrible. And there's lots of you who don't just sell on Poshmark like for a hobby or for a little bit of extra side cash. For some of you, it's your full time income, and just to have that just taken right out from under you, like, it's just ugh. And I know some Poshmark sellers do have US closets and will sell there. But then there was, like, at the same time, there was Stallion Express was made a statement that they were going to stop taking third party labels. And that's a service that Posh US sellers need in order to ship their products. But then I guess apparently they haven't followed through with that yet and are still accepting. This is what I've heard. I don't sell on Posh US, so I don't know for sure. Um, but anyway, like, this kind of uncertainty is super real and it creates a ton of additional stress, whether you're just a hobby seller or whether you're doing this as your full time job. Interestingly, it's not directly a Poshmark problem, it's a carrier problem, right? The carriers went down and weren't able to deliver. But Poshmark is also leaning into this risk the same way that you or me might rely on a third party selling platform for all of our income. Poshmark is relying on one carrier for all of its shipping logistics. So that's a much bigger company than you or me making a mistake like that, having no backup plan, no foresight, just like nothing in place to reduce or transfer the risk. Like, nothing. And I find that really surprising and I find it very worrying. And so for those reasons, Poshmark isn't a platform I'm ever going to lean too hard into. So they have made that huge mistake. And that's a mistake I don't want any of you to make either. So over this time, I actually did 2 webinars for Poshmark sellers. I did a free one and a paid one about pivoting to eBay because I could see, like, in the groups there was so much frustration, and I was like, I can offer my knowledge here, like, to help some people try to get, some income off of eBay. And then somebody said, "Oh, that's ironic that you want to help us considering how eBay just screwed you over so much." And I'm like, "Yeah, I get it, but nevertheless, it's an option that's out there. It's a good option for sellers." So I did these 2 webinars. They were very successful, very busy. First one had 225 people sign up for it. So that was amazing. I'm going to be revamping those presentations and wrapping them up into like a small product that I'm going to launch next year. So I just want to mention that if you're listening to this podcast, but you're a really new eBay seller, you will want to stay tuned for that product to launch because it'll help you get your eBay store set up and get you rolling a lot faster. So that's coming. So I just want to say, just remember that no matter what platform is your primary selling platform, eBay, Posh, whatever, you are accepting a risk by relying on them completely. This doesn't mean I think you should cross list all of your stuff to other platforms because I think that's a waste of time. And that's an episode I keep meaning to do and I haven't done it yet. But I think that should come. I think it may be time for that. But you do need to be ready to pivot and move over and make something else work really, really fast if something happens that's completely outside of your control, like this Canada Post strike. So that's my wrap for 2024. Call to action for you. I'm just curious. Are you relying too much on one platform? And I'd love to know which one. Is that a risk you're willing to accept? Leave me a comment and let me know. As well, let me know what kinds of content you would like to hear from me in 2025. I'm working on a content list, but I say this all the time. I really would love your ideas, and it's so much fun to run with the suggestions that you give me. So leave a comment and tell me what you want me to talk about in the new year. The first couple of episodes will focus on a year in review, our 2025 goals, and our renewed quest for $1 million in revenue. Don't forget, if you're listening on a podcatcher, pop over to youtube.com/@StorageWarrior podcast and subscribe there. You'll occasionally get some extra video content. And if you're listening on YouTube, do the other thing. Go over to businessofreselling.com, pick your favorite podcatcher, and subscribe to me there so you can listen to me in your car. It'll be amazing. And don't forget, we are always buying. Hook us up with a great pick in the Pacific Northwest or British Columbia, and you will receive a gift. Thanks so much for listening this year. I will be back in January. I love talking to you, and I love your comments. Keep them coming, and Happy New Year.